What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've ever been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. Tayo's hand trembled as she turned the doorknob of her Lekki home that hot Saturday afternoon. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon and betrayal, a scent she would never forget. She had left her office early to surprise her husband, Dele, with his favorite dish, ifo riro and pounded yam. But when she pushed the bedroom door open, the surprise was hers. Dele was in their bed, their marriage bed, with another woman. The woman's headscarf fell as she scrambled off the sheets. Tayo froze. The tray in her hand slipped, crashing to the floor, the stew splattering like blood across the white tiles. Dele jumped up, his face pale, his expensive wristwatch gleaming under the ceiling light. Tayo, it's not what you think. She let out a bitter laugh that tore through the silence. Oh really, Dele? Then what is it? A business meeting. The other woman, a curvy young lady with glossy braids, snatched her bag and ran past Tayo, muttering apologies. Tayo didn't even look at her eyes were locked on Dele, the man she trusted for 8 years, the man she thought God had sent to heal her loneliness. You're humiliating me, he said quietly, reaching for his shirt. Can we please talk like adults? Tayo's chest burned. Adults? You call this adult behavior? You brought another woman into my home, into the bed I prayed over. Dele sighed, buttoning his shirt. You're overreacting, Tayo. You've been distant. Always busy, always acting like a boss at work. I needed affection. The words stung like acid. So it's my fault now, she thought. Her mind flashed through the years, the nights she stayed up managing their boutique's accounts, the weekends she planned his mother's medical bills, the love she poured into a man who now looked at her like a nuisance. Dele, she whispered, her voice cracking, did you ever love me? He hesitated. Of course I did. But love doesn't pay bills, does it? That line cut deep. In that moment, she saw the truth she had ignored for years. Dele hadn't married her out of love. He'd married her for her money. Her late father's inheritance. Her thriving boutique in Ikeja. Her steady contracts with luxury brands. It all made sense now, the expensive cars, the sudden business trips, the way he always avoided talking about joint accounts. You used me, she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. You used me like an ATM. Don't talk nonsense, Dele snapped, now irritated. I gave you comfort, respect, a name. What more do you want? Tayo took a deep breath, gathering what was left of her dignity. Get out, she said calmly. Before I do something I regret. But Dele smirked, like a man who believed he still had control. I'm not going anywhere. This is my house. Her voice hardened. No, Dele. I bought this house. The look in his eyes changed. For the first time, fear flickered there. Tayo walked to the wardrobe, pulled out a small suitcase, and threw it toward him. Pack your things. Now. He didn't move. Instead, he pulled out his phone, scrolled, and smirked again. You really think you can throw me out? I'm not stupid, Tayo. Remember that property document you made me co-sign last year? Guess whose name is now on the title? Her stomach dropped. What did you do? He walked past her, whispering in her ear, you're not the only smart one. The sound of the front door slamming behind him echoed through the house like thunder. Tayo stood frozen, her whole world collapsing around her. Her hands shook as she picked up her phone and called her best friend, Amoka. Amoka, she said, her voice trembling. He's been cheating, and he just told me he owns half of my house. There was a pause on the line, then Amoka's calm, firm voice, Tayo, this isn't the time to cry. It's time to fight. Tayo looked around the room, the silk curtains she'd chosen, the framed wedding photos, the rose gold watch she bought him on his birthday, all symbols of a love that had just died. For the first time in her life, Tayo felt something stronger than heartbreak. She felt vengeance stirring inside her chest. The woman who had been gentle and patient was gone. And in her place stood someone else, a woman ready to reclaim her power, her dignity, and everything Dele thought he owned. She wiped her tears, squared her shoulders, and whispered to herself, "He married me for money. Now he'll pay for every naira." Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the streets of Lekki. The sound of traffic filled the air, but inside, Tayo's silence was heavier than thunder. Because tonight, our revenge had just begun. Dele has cheated and manipulated Tayo into signing away part of her property. She's heartbroken but determined to fight back, legally, emotionally, and strategically. The next morning, Lagos was already awake before Tayo could face the world. Outside her window, hawkers shouted prices, danfo buses honked, and gospel music drifted from a neighbor's radio, "God no go shame us." But inside Tayo's house, silence reigned. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the crumpled sheets that still smelled faintly of Dele's cologne. Her eyes were red from crying, her heart heavy like wet cloth. On her phone, Amoka's name flashed again. "Tayo, you can't just sit there," Amoka's voice urged. "You need to find out what he's done with your property documents." Tayo exhaled. "I can't even think straight. I trusted him with everything, Amoka. My business, my lawyer, my—" "Exactly why you must move now," Amoka interrupted sharply. "Men like Dele. Once they know you've caught on, they'll start covering their tracks. Go to your lawyer today." Tayo closed her eyes. She could still hear Dele's mocking voice from last night, "You're not the only smart one." By noon, she was dressed, simple jeans, a white blouse, her hair tied neatly back. She looked composed on the outside, but inside she was a storm. At the law firm in Victoria Island, her lawyer, Mr. Adebayo, adjusted his glasses as he scanned the property file. Imamad, this isn't good, Mrs. Balogun." Tayo's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" He turned the document around. "Your husband added his name to the property registration earlier this year. And," he hesitated, "he also took a bank loan, using the house as collateral." The words hit her like thunder. "He did what?" "Yes. 30 million naira. Signed, approved, and paid. The funds were transferred to an account in his name." Tayo's vision blurred. She gripped the edge of the desk. "So he's been planning this all along." Mr. Adebayo looked at her sympathetically. "Do you want to press charges? We could file a fraud complaint, but that would make it public. Once it's out, the tabloids will eat it up, especially given your boutique's popularity." Tayo shook her head slowly. "Not yet. I won't let him drag my name through the mud." She stood up, her voice low but steady. "I'll deal with him in my own way." That evening, she drove to Dele's office in Ikeja. She waited in her car, watching as he exited with his usual arrogance, tailored suit, designer watch, and that fake smile he reserved for clients. He was charming, yes. But now, Tayo saw through it, the mask of a man who built his confidence on lies. She followed discreetly as he drove to a restaurant in Victoria Island. Inside, she watched from a corner booth, hidden behind dark shades. Dele sat across from a woman, not the one she caught him with before. This one was older, polished, maybe in her 40s, with gold jewelry that screamed money. The woman laughed softly, touching Dele's arm. Tayo clenched her fist. So this is his new target. When the waiter passed, she slipped him a 5,000 naira note. "Please record their table conversation for me," she whispered. The young waiter blinked. "Auntie, I fit lose my job oh." She smiled faintly. "Don't worry. I'll make it worth your while." He nodded, pocketed the note, and quietly placed a recording phone near Dele's table. 2 hours later, back home, Tayo played the audio. Woman's voice, "You're sure the house is in your name now?" Dele, "Of course. My wife doesn't even know I used it for the loan. She's too emotional to handle business." Woman, laughs, "Good. When the funds mature, you'll wire my share. You know the deal." Dele, "You have my word. By next month, I'll be free from that woman completely." Tayo froze. It wasn't just infidelity, it was conspiracy. Dele wasn't working alone. The woman was his partner in the loan fraud. Together, they were planning to sell the house or default, leaving Tayo bankrupt. Her pulse quickened, her eyes fierce. "So that's your game, Dele?" She picked up her phone again. "Amoka, I have proof. He's not only cheating, he's laundering money with that woman. I have the recording." Amoka's voice was calm but sharp. "Good. Then it's time you stop crying and start acting. We'll hit him where it hurts, his pride and his pocket." Tayo smiled faintly. "He married me for money, Amoka. But now, money will be the reason he loses everything." She looked out through her window at the Lagos night, the glittering skyline, the streetlights reflecting off puddles after rain, the constant hum of traffic. The city felt alive, indifferent to her pain, yet somehow empowering. "Let the game begin," she whispered. Tayo now has proof that Dele and another woman are conspiring to drain her financially. She's no longer the victim, she's preparing to strike back. But how far will she go for revenge? The following Monday morning, Lagos shimmered under the haze of early sunlight. In her boutique at Ikeja GRA, Tayo stood behind the glass counter, pretending to check invoices. Her mind wasn't on sales or suppliers, it was on revenge. Every detail of her plan had to be precise. Dele thought he was clever, but he had underestimated the woman who built a business empire from nothing. Amoka walked in wearing a power suit, holding a steaming cup of coffee. "You look like someone ready for war," she teased. Tayo gave a small, cold smile. "War is expensive, Amoka. And you know I can afford it." They both laughed, but underneath, the tension was real. Amoka leaned closer. "What's the next move?" Tayo lowered her voice. "I'm going to make him believe I've forgiven him." Amoka blinked. "You what?" "Yes," Tayo said firmly. "If I fight him openly, he'll hide his tracks. But if he thinks I'm weak, he'll expose himself completely." That evening, she called Dele. Her voice was calm, soft, the same tone she used when she once loved him. "Dele, can we talk?" He hesitated on the line. "Talk? After all the insults?" "Please," she whispered. "I've had time to think. I don't want to lose everything we've built. Let's just talk." Dele chuckled, clearly smug. "I knew you'd come around. You always do. Come over for dinner tomorrow," she said. "Let's fix this." "Good," he replied. "I'll be there." As soon as she hung up, Tayo looked at Amoka and smirked. Hook, line, and sinker. The next evening, the dining room was set like a scene from their early marriage, candles, soft jazz music, and the smell of fried plantain and jollof rice filling the air. When Dele arrived, he wore that familiar expensive cologne, the one Tayo used to love but now associated with lies. He smiled as he sat down. "Wow, you went all out. You're serious about making peace." She smiled sweetly. "You're still my husband, aren't you?" They ate. They laughed, though only one of them meant it. Halfway through dinner, Tayo reached across the table, placing a hand on his. "Dele, I've been thinking, maybe we should merge our finances again. Start afresh. Together." His eyes sparkled with greed. "That's a great idea. I can even help you manage the business side, I know people." "Of course you do," she murmured, hiding her disgust. Why don't we meet with my accountant tomorrow? I'll let him prepare the documents. Dele grinned, thinking he was back in control. Now that's my wife. But he didn't know that the accountant was actually a private investigator Tayo had hired 2 days ago. The next morning at her office, the PI, a quiet, middle-aged man named Mr. Yusuf, slid a brown folder across her desk. Mrs. Balogun, I've been tracking your husband's activities for the past 48 hours. You were right, he's moving money. Tayo opened the folder. Inside were screenshots of transfers, property agreements, and a photo of Dele meeting the same woman at a hotel in Victoria Island. Mr. Yusuf continued, he's been using a fake company account called Zline Consults to funnel cash. The woman, her name is Nozi Nwodo, registered it with him. Tayo clenched her jaw. How much are we talking about? About 22 million naira so far. Her chest tightened, but she held her composure. Can you get me full documentation? I want every trace. Yes, ma'am, Mr. Yusuf said. And one more thing, they are planning a trip to Dubai next week. Likely to transfer the funds offshore. Tayo's lips curved into a cold smile. Then we'll make sure that trip never happens. That night, she met with Amoka again. Together, they drafted an anonymous email to Ngozi, using a fake name. Subject: Important, your partner's hidden accounts. Message: You think you know Dele Balogun. He's keeping another account you're not aware of. You're being played. Check with Zenith Bank, business account ending 4293. Amoka chuckled as she hit send. Let's see how loyal this side chick really is. Tayo nodded. Let her do the dirty work for us. 2 days later, Dele stormed into her boutique, furious. You think you're smart, don't you? He shouted, slamming the door. Tayo frowned innocently. What's wrong? Don't play dumb, Tayo. Ngozi confronted me. She thinks I'm hiding money from her. Tayo's voice remained calm. And are you? His face reddened. That's not the point. You're behind this, I know it. She stood, meeting his gaze coldly. You come into my business, screaming like a madman, and accuse me, after you stole from me. Dele stepped closer, his tone threatening. You don't know who you're dealing with, Tayo. If you destroy me, you destroy yourself too. She tilted her head slightly. Then I guess we'll both burn. They stood in silence, two people who once shared dreams, now sharing only hatred. Finally, Dele spat, you regret this, and stormed out. As the door slammed shut, Tayo's hands trembled, but her resolve hardened. Amoka walked in moments later. You okay? Tayo took a deep breath. Yes. He's unraveling faster than I expected. Next step, we expose him to his business partners. Amoka smiled. You're dangerous when you're calm. Tayo nodded. He wanted a woman with money. Now he'll learn what happens when money fights back. Dele's second mistress, Ngozi, has turned against him. His business empire begins to crumble, and Tayo isn't done yet. The game of revenge has only just begun. By midweek, Lagos gossip circles were buzzing with whispers, something about a businessman's double life, an angry mistress, and missing millions. Tayo didn't need to read the blogs to know whose name was spreading like wildfire. Dele Balogun. Her phone vibrated non-stop, reporters calling for comments, friends sending screenshots of headlines. Prominent entrepreneur involved in fraud scandal. Businessman caught between two lovers and one loan. Leaked audio reveals affair and money laundering scheme. Each notification was both satisfying and painful. The man who once walked with pride beside her was now a national disgrace. But Tayo didn't smile. She just sat quietly in her boutique office, staring at the sunlight reflecting off the glass desk. She had wanted revenge, and now it was happening. Yet, a strange ache filled her chest. Are you okay? Amoka asked, stepping in with her phone in hand. It's all over social media. That recording you leaked worked. Tayo nodded slowly. Yes. He's getting what he deserves. But Amoka, she hesitated, why does it still hurt? Amoka sighed. Because you loved him, Tayo. You can destroy a man and still mourn the love that once was. Tayo looked away. He made me believe in a future that never existed. Meanwhile, in Dele's office, chaos reigned. His employees whispered as he stormed through the hallway, phone pressed to his ear. Listen, we can fix this, he barked at someone. Just deny everything. The bank can't prove the money trail without Ngozi's signature. But the voice on the other end, his investor, was cold. Dele, don't call this number again. We can't be associated with this mess. You're on your own. He slammed his phone on the table and buried his face in his hands. His empire, the fake image he built, was crumbling. Ngozi had gone silent, her number unreachable. The media was tearing him apart. His so-called friends stopped answering his calls. He thought of Tayo, calm, intelligent, dangerous Tayo. And for the first time, he realized the truth, he had picked a fight with the wrong woman. That night, Dele showed up at Tayo's house again. When she opened the door, he looked nothing like the confident man she once knew. His shirt was untucked, his eyes bloodshot, his voice shaky. Tayo, please, he whispered. I'm finished. I just need your help. Tayo folded her arms. Help? You mean after you cheated, stole from me, and forged my signature? He took a desperate step closer. I was stupid. I thought I could control everything, but I've lost it all. Ngozi disappeared with half the money. Tayo's expression didn't change. So you want me to save you from the woman you betrayed me for? Dele's voice cracked. Please, Tayo. I'll fix everything. I'll give you back the house, the money, just help me get through this. For a moment, she almost felt pity. But then she remembered that night, the mockery in his tone when he said, love doesn't pay bills. No, she said quietly. You'll fix it yourself. She started to close the door, but he grabbed it. Don't do this. You'll ruin me. She looked at him with steady eyes. No, Dele. You ruined yourself. Then she shut the door. The next morning, another headline appeared. Dele Balogun declared wanted for financial misappropriation. Tayo's phone rang again, this time, it was Mr. Adebayo, her lawyer. Good news, he said. The property is now under review. Since he forged documents and took loans under false pretenses, the law favors you. You retain ownership after the investigation. Tayo exhaled, tears filling her eyes. Thank you, barrister. As she hung up, she finally felt a flicker of peace. For the first time in months, she could breathe. But peace was short-lived. That evening, Amoka rushed into her house, breathless. Tayo, turn on the TV. Now. On the screen was a live broadcast, Dele, standing outside the EFCC office, giving an interview. His face was swollen with anger. I have reason to believe my wife, Mrs. Tayo Balogun, set me up. She leaked those recordings, manipulated the media, and forged documents against me. This is domestic betrayal at the highest level. Tayo froze. He's blaming me. Amoka's jaw dropped. That man has no shame. The reporter pressed on. Mr. Balogun, are you saying your wife framed you? Dele nodded. Absolutely. I'll fight back with everything I have. Tayo turned off the TV slowly. Her pulse pounded. He wants war. Then he'll get it. She walked to her study, opened a drawer, and pulled out a flash drive, the one with all the recordings, bank evidence, and screenshots. It was time to expose the final truth, the one that would destroy his last shred of reputation. Amoka looked at her, half in awe, half in fear. "You're really going through with this?" Tayo nodded. "He married me for money. Now, he'll learn the price of betraying a good woman." Dele, now exposed and desperate, publicly accuses Tayo of framing him. She prepares to release the final evidence that could end him completely, but at what personal cost? The morning air in Lagos was thick with humidity and tension. For days, Tayo had stayed quiet, letting Dele's accusations run wild on social media. His interviews painted him as a victim, a heartbroken husband betrayed by his ambitious wife. And for a moment, some people believed him. But not for long. That Wednesday, Tayo dressed in a crisp white blazer and soft gold earrings. She stood before her vanity mirror, calm but resolute. In her reflection, she saw not a broken woman, but a survivor ready to take back her name. Amoka entered, holding her phone. "Are you sure you want to go public? Once you do this, there's no going back." Tayo nodded. "He took everything from me: love, trust, dignity. This is not revenge anymore. This is justice." At 11 a.m., she walked into the brightly lit studio of CityView TV, one of the top talk shows in Lagos. The host, a poised woman named Bisola Ade, welcomed her with a warm but curious smile. "Mrs. Tayo Balogun," Bisola began, "you've been accused of orchestrating your husband's downfall. What do you have to say to Nigerians watching right now?" The camera zoomed in on Tayo's face. The studio lights glimmered against her smooth brown skin. She took a deep breath. "First of all, I want to thank everyone who has reached out to me. But today, I'm not here to defend myself with words, I'm here to show you the truth." She held up a small flash drive. "Everything my husband has accused me of, he actually did to me. And I have the proof." Gasps rippled across the room. Bisola leaned forward. "You mean?" Tayo nodded. "Yes. He forged my signature, took out a bank loan using my house, and used my business account for money laundering with another woman named Ngozi Nwodo. Here are the documents, bank transactions, and recordings." The screen behind them lit up with copies of statements, signatures, and the now infamous audio clips. Dele's voice: "She's too emotional to handle business. Ngozi, good. When the funds mature, you'll wire my share." The host's jaw dropped. This is shocking." Tayo's voice didn't waver. "He didn't just betray me as a wife, he betrayed every woman who's ever sacrificed her dreams to build a man's future. I believed in love, but I learned that love without respect is slavery." The audience burst into murmurs of support. Some clapped quietly. Tayo continued, her voice steady but heavy with emotion. "I don't hate Dele. But I will not let deceit win. This is my story, and I'm taking my life back." By evening, the internet was on fire. The video of our interview had gone viral, trending across Nigeria and the diaspora. #Tayo speaks, #Africa marriage drama, #domestic betrayal flooded every timeline. The comments poured in. "This woman is brave. She's speaking for all of us who've been betrayed. Dele deserves everything coming to him." In a single day, Tayo transformed from a whispered rumor to a symbol of strength. Her boutique sales even doubled overnight. Women came not just to shop, but to see her. Some hugged her, others shared their own painful stories. "Madam Tayo," one woman said, eyes glistening, "you've given me courage to walk away from my cheating husband." Tayo smiled faintly. "Walk away with your dignity, my sister. That's worth more than any man's promise." But while the world celebrated her bravery, Dele's world completely fell apart. At his apartment, he sat surrounded by unpaid bills and unopened letters from the bank. His company's accounts were frozen. The police had reopened his fraud case. Even his mother refused to take his calls after neighbors started gossiping. He watched Tayo's interview replay on TV, her calm face, her confidence, her quiet grace. He slammed the remote against the wall. That woman destroyed me. Ngozi's number was still unreachable. She had taken what remained of their stolen funds and vanished. And for the first time, Dele understood the emptiness of power built on lies. Later that week, Tayo received a court notice, the property dispute hearing. It was the final step. Amoka went with her to court that Monday morning. The judge, stern and composed, listened as both sides presented their cases. Dele tried to speak confidently, but his lies collapsed under the weight of evidence. The forged signatures, the recordings, the fraudulent loan, it was all undeniable. Finally, the judge looked at him. "Mr. Balogun," she said firmly, "this court finds you guilty of document forgery and fraudulent misappropriation. The property reverts fully to Mrs. Tayo Balogun. You are hereby ordered to repay the loan in full or face imprisonment." The courtroom murmured. Dele's shoulders slumped. Tayo closed her eyes in relief. She had won. As she walked out, reporters surrounded her, shouting questions. "How do you feel, Mrs. Balogun? What will you do next?" She stopped for a moment, looked into the cameras, and smiled softly. "I feel free." That evening, she and Amoka sat on the balcony of her house, sipping wine as the Lagos skyline glowed in the distance. "You did it, Tayo," Amoka said quietly. "You got justice." Tayo sighed. "Yes. But it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like closure." Amoka smiled. "That's because revenge gives satisfaction, but truth gives peace." Tayo nodded slowly. "Maybe now, I can finally heal." She looked down at her wedding ring, still sitting in a glass bowl where she'd left it weeks ago. She picked it up, stared for a moment, and then gently dropped it into the trash. The metallic clink echoed softly, "Finally, Andy Freen." Tayo has cleared her name and regained control, but peace never lasts long. Dele, cornered and humiliated, begins plotting something desperate. The weeks that followed the court judgment were a storm inside Dele's mind. He had lost everything: the house, the car, his business, and even the respect of his peers. His name, once associated with sharp suits and quick deals, now lingered on lips followed by pity or scorn. Lagos, the city that once felt like his empire, now mocked him with every billboard he passed. Tayo's face was everywhere. She'd been invited to speak on panels, to feature in magazines, to tell her story of resilience. And each time he saw her glowing in another headline, something inside him cracked a little more. At night, he sat alone in his one-room apartment in Ogba, drinking cheap gin. The power would go out half the time, leaving him in darkness, just him, the flickering candlelight, and his thoughts. "After everything I did for her," he muttered bitterly, gripping the bottle. Ungrateful woman. But deep down, he knew it was a lie. Tayo had built their world. She was the brains, the backbone, the steady rhythm behind every risk he took. And now, without her, he was nothing but a shadow of his former self. Still, pride wouldn't let him admit defeat. Not yet. One evening, he received a call from an unknown number. "Hello," he said, half expecting it to be a debt collector. The voice on the other end purred with confidence. "Dele Balogun. It's been a while." He frowned. "Who's this?" "Someone who believes in second chances." There was a pause, then she laughed softly. "You remember me?" "Ngozi." His heart clenched. "Ngozi. You disappeared. You left me to deal with the police, the banks." "Calm down," she interrupted smoothly. "I had to lay low. But I've been watching everything. You're in a tight spot, aren't you?" He didn't answer. She continued, "I have a new deal. One that can get you back on your feet, and maybe even embarrass that ex-wife of yours while we're at it." Dele's hand trembled slightly. I'm listening. 2 days later, they met at a small restaurant in Lekki. Ngozi looked different, designer shades, red lipstick, hair in sleek braids. She carried herself like someone who had made new connections. Dangerous ones. I've got investors, she said, sipping her wine. We are moving into real estate now. All we need is someone who knows the Lagos property market, someone desperate enough to take risks. Dele frowned. You're saying? I'm saying, Ngozi cut in, help me secure these deals under your name. You'll get your cut. And maybe, just maybe, we can make Tayo regret ever humiliating you. Dele's jaw tightened. Tayo's not even in my life anymore. Ngozi smirked. But she's in your head. Don't lie to yourself. He looked away. She leaned forward. Think about it. Power, money, and revenge, all in one move. Don't you want that? He didn't answer, but his silence said enough. Days passed. Dele began moving like a man reborn, making calls, signing small contracts, trying to look important again. But this time, there was a nervous energy behind it all, a desperation that people could smell. And soon, rumors started swirling again. That Dele Balogun was back in business, but this time with shady partners. When the whispers reached Tayo, she felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She was sitting in her boutique, arranging fabrics for a new line when Amoka rushed in. Have you seen the news? She asked, breathless. Tayo frowned. What is it this time? Amoka handed her the phone. The headline read, Disgraced entrepreneur Dele Balogun linked to new fraud network. Below the text was a blurry photo, Dele shaking hands with Ngozi at a business event. Tayo sighed deeply. He's going to destroy himself completely. Amoka folded her arms. You think he'll stop before he drags you back into it? Tayo looked up, concerned. What do you mean? Amoka's tone was low. If his name is dirty again, and he's using your past marriage records to gain trust, they'll come for you too. The thought hit Tayo like a slap. After all she'd endured, she couldn't let his recklessness pull her back into the storm. That night, as rain pattered against her window, she sat by her desk, staring at her laptop screen. She opened her email and began typing, this time, not to the press, not to the court, but to the EFCC. Subject, ongoing fraud investigation, Dele Balogun. Message. Dear Sir/Mo. I believe my ex-husband, Mr. Dele Balogun, has resumed illegal financial activities with one Ms. Ngozi Modo. Attached are photos, names, and contacts. Please investigate discreetly. Regards. Mrs. Tayo Balogun. She hit send and exhaled slowly. This time, she whispered, you won't ruin me again. Meanwhile, Dele was on a high. The small wins from Ngozi's connections made him feel alive again. But unknown to him, his emails were being tracked, his phone tapped, and every suspicious transaction logged. Ngozi's investors weren't business partners, they were undercover operatives. Within 2 weeks, the operation crashed. Dele was arrested at a hotel in Ikeja, his face caught on camera, wrists in cuffs. As the officers led him away, he shouted, Tayo. She set me up. I know it's her. But his words fell into the empty air of a life finally catching up to its lies. The news broke by morning. Former entrepreneur arrested in new fraud case, Tayo Balogun clears her name once again. Tayo read the headline in silence. There was no joy in her eyes, only relief and sorrow. She whispered to herself, may he finally learn peace, even if it's behind bars. That evening, she took a slow walk by the Lagos Lagoon, the city lights reflecting like broken stars across the water. Amoka joined her quietly. Do you feel vindicated? She asked. Tayo shook her head. No. Just tired. Sometimes, justice doesn't heal you. It just frees you. Amoka smiled softly. And freedom is the beginning of healing. Tayo nodded, eyes glistening. Yes. Maybe now, I can start again, not as someone's wife, not as someone's victim, as me. Dele's arrest marks the end of their war, but not the end of Tayo's journey. The next chapter begins her rise to purpose and forgiveness. The first morning after Dele's arrest was quiet. Too quiet. For the first time in years, Tayo woke up without the weight of fear pressing against her chest. The hum of Lagos traffic outside felt softer, almost peaceful. She walked to her mirror, touched her face, and saw something she hadn't seen in a long time: calm. Not happiness yet, but peace trying to find its way back. She whispered to her reflection, "You survived, Tayo. You made it through." Weeks turned into months. Tayo's boutique, TB Creations, began to flourish again. Orders came from both within Nigeria and abroad: stylish Ankara jackets, handmade jewelry, and corporate wear that blended tradition with modern design. Women came to her store not just to shop, but to talk, to share their own stories of betrayal, survival, and courage. Many said, "Madam, you inspired me. When I saw what you went through and how you stood tall, I found strength." Those words planted a seed in Tayo's heart. Maybe her pain had a purpose. One afternoon, while packing a set of orders for delivery, Amoka walked in holding an envelope. "Tayo, this came for you," she said. "It's from Voices of African Women, the NGO that focuses on women empowerment." Tayo opened it carefully. Inside was a formal invitation. "Dear Mrs. Balogun, we are inspired by your story of resilience and financial independence. We would be honored if you could speak at our annual conference on the theme Rising After Betrayal, Women Reclaiming Power." Tayo's hands trembled slightly as she read it again. She had been a victim, then a fighter. Now, people wanted her to speak as a voice. She looked up at Amoka with tears in her eyes. "I never imagined my heartbreak would become someone's lesson." Amoka smiled warmly. "That's what happens when pain turns into purpose." The day of the event arrived. The conference hall at Eco Hotel glowed with warm lights. Dozens of women filled the room: executives, entrepreneurs, widows, and young professionals, all waiting to hear her story. Tayo stood backstage, adjusting her microphone. Her palms were sweating. When her name was announced, the applause was thunderous. She stepped onto the stage, the bright lights blinding her for a moment. Taking a deep breath, she began. "My name is Tayo Balogun. Once upon a time, I believed marriage was everything. I thought love could survive betrayal if I tried hard enough. But life taught me that love without respect is a slow form of death." The audience went silent. "I was married to a man who loved what I had more than who I was. When he betrayed me, I lost everything: my peace, my confidence, my home. But that loss became my freedom. Because from the ashes of heartbreak, I built myself again." Some women in the crowd were already crying. "Today, I stand not as someone who was broken, but as someone who was rebuilt." Betrayal doesn't end your story, it refines it. It teaches you who you are when the world turns against you. The room erupted into applause. As she stepped off the stage, several women came forward to hug her. One of them whispered, "You gave me courage to leave my toxic marriage." Tayo smiled softly. "You already had the courage. You just needed to see it." Later that evening, as she sat alone in her car, Tayo scrolled through her phone. She saw a short clip from her speech already trending online, captioned, "From betrayal to empowerment, Tayo Balogun's inspiring words break the internet." Tayo chuckled gently. She wasn't looking for fame, but she knew this was destiny, to help other women find light after darkness. Still, in quiet moments, her mind sometimes drifted back to Dele. Where was he now? Was he safe? Did he ever think of her with regret? She didn't know, and maybe she didn't need to. Some questions didn't need answers, they only needed peace. One Sunday afternoon, she visited her mother in Ibadan. Mama Balogun, grey-haired and gentle, was sitting on the veranda peeling oranges. "My daughter," she said, smiling, "you're looking strong again." "I thank God." Tayo knelt beside her. "Mama, it was hard, but God carried me through." Mama nodded knowingly. "Betrayal is fire, my child. But fire doesn't only destroy, it also purifies." Tayo rested her head on her mother's lap. "I forgave him, Mama. Not because he deserves it, but because I need peace." Her mother's eyes softened. "That's how you win, my daughter. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's freedom." Tayo smiled. "Yes. I feel lighter." Before returning to Lagos, Tayo stopped by a small church she used to attend in her youth. She knelt at the altar, tears rolling freely down her cheeks. "Thank you, Lord," she whispered, "for turning my pain into purpose. For helping me forgive the one who broke me. And for showing me that I am enough." The choir's soft melody filled the air, and for the first time in years, Tayo felt whole. Just as peace finally returns to Tayo's life, a letter arrives at her doorstep, one that would test her forgiveness and open a new chapter she never expected. It was a calm Saturday morning in Lagos. The air smelled of rain-soaked dust, and gospel music floated softly from a neighbor's radio. Tayo was arranging a new batch of fabrics in her boutique when a young courier stepped inside. "Good morning, Ma," he said, holding out a brown envelope. "You have a letter from the Karikeri Correctional Center." Tayo froze. "Karikeri," she repeated softly, her heart skipping. The courier nodded. "Yes, Ma." It was signed by a Mr. Dele Balogun. For a few seconds, she couldn't move. She just stared at the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly as she took it. "Thank you," she whispered. When he left, she locked the door and sat quietly at her desk. The envelope was neatly sealed, her name written in Dele's unmistakable handwriting. She turned it over in her hands, debating whether to open it. After all, what could he possibly say now? Finally, she tore it open. "My dear Tayo," the letter began. "If you are reading this, it means I've lost the right to speak to you face to face, maybe forever. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I need you to hear my truth." Tayo's eyes scanned the words, her chest tightening. "When I met you, I saw strength. You were different, confident, smart, everything I wasn't. But instead of admiring that, I envied it. I felt small beside you. So, I tried to control you, to prove I was still the man. I thought money could fill the emptiness in me. It didn't. It only destroyed me." She paused, breathing deeply, tears blurring the ink. "I hurt you because I didn't know how to love myself. I took from you what I could never build for myself, peace. I used you, betrayed you, and in the process, I lost the only person who truly believed in me." The words grew shaky. "They say prison changes a man. Maybe it has. I spend every night thinking of you, not the wife I betrayed, but the woman who stood tall even after I tried to break her. You taught me the hardest lesson of all, that love without respect is ruin." Tayo's tears fell freely now. "I'm not writing to ask for anything. Only to say I'm sorry. Deeply. Truly. If there's still a part of you that can pray for me, even once, please do. Because I don't deserve your mercy, but I need God's. Yours in regret. Dele." For several minutes, Tayo sat in silence. The sounds of Lagos faded away. All she could hear was the thumping of her heart. Dele's words had opened old wounds, but also something else. Closure. She folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and held it to her chest. That evening, she visited her church again. The same altar where she had once knelt to thank God for her healing now felt different, heavier, more sacred. As the choir sang softly in the background, Tayo knelt down and whispered, "God, you said to forgive those who wronged us. I've spoken those words before, but today, I choose to mean them." Her voice trembled. "I forgive him. Not for what he did, but for who I am now. Because I won't carry the pain anymore." The tears flowed freely, but they were cleansing tears, not of hurt, but of release. A few days later, she told Amoka about the letter over lunch. Amoka frowned. "You actually forgave him? After everything?" Tayo smiled faintly. "Yes. Forgiveness isn't about him, Amoka. It's about peace. I can't let his mistakes live rent-free in my heart anymore." Amoka sighed and reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "You're stronger than most people I know." Tayo laughed softly. "No, my friend. I'm just finally free." But the past wasn't finished with her yet. A week later, she received another message, this time, from the prison chaplain himself. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Balogun. Mr. Dele Balogun has taken ill. He requested to see you before his condition worsens. There's something he wishes to give you personally. Please consider visiting before it's too late." Tayo sat still, the message glowing on her phone. She whispered to herself, "After everything, should I really go?" Her heart was torn. Part of her wanted to stay away, to protect the peace she'd fought so hard to earn. But another part, the part that still believed in compassion, knew she had to face him one last time. She stared out the window at the fading Lagos sunset, the city lights blinking to life below. "Maybe this is how the story truly ends," she murmured. Then, she picked up her phone and replied, "I'll come tomorrow." Ow. Tayo decides to visit Dele in prison, but what awaits her there will reveal one final, shocking truth that changes everything. The next morning came slowly, grey skies hanging low over Lagos. Tayo didn't sleep much. She had packed and repacked her handbag 3 times before finally sitting in silence, staring at the letter again. Her mother had called earlier, saying, "If your heart tells you to go, my daughter, go. But don't go looking for pain, go looking for peace." Now, as she sat in the back seat of a taxi headed toward Kirikiri, Tayo felt a strange stillness. The kind that comes when you know life is about to close a long, painful chapter. The driver glanced at her through the mirror. "Madam, you sure say you won't enter that place? That prison no be small thing oh." Tayo managed a small smile. "Yes. I need to see someone." He nodded slowly, respecting the weight in her voice. At the gate of Kirikiri Medium Prison, she was met by the chaplain, an elderly man with kind eyes and a soft voice. "You must be Mrs. Balogun," he said gently. "Thank you for coming. He's been asking for you every day since he got sick." Tayo swallowed hard. "Is he very ill?" The chaplain hesitated. "His body is weak, but his heart, it's heavier. Sometimes, guilt eats faster than sickness." He led her through the narrow hallways. The air was thick with disinfectant and quiet murmurs from inmates. Each step echoed like memory, the laughter, the betrayal, the heartbreak, all leading her to this moment. Finally, they stopped at a small cell. Inside, behind the bars, sat Dele. She almost didn't recognize him. His once proud frame had shrunk, his hair was thin and graying, his face hollow. But when he looked up and saw her, his eyes softened in a way she had never seen before. "Tayo," he whispered, voice weak but clear. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was thick, not angry this time, just full of years that couldn't be rewritten. Tayo finally said softly, "You wanted to see me?" He nodded slowly. "Yes. I didn't think you'd come." "I almost didn't," she admitted. "But I read your letter." He smiled faintly. Then you know everything I wanted to say. No, she said gently. You said you had something more. Dele motioned to the chaplain, who handed Tayo a small brown envelope. Open it, he said. Inside was a document, a deed of ownership. Her eyes widened as she read the title. Property transfer, house at Lekki Phase 1, beneficiary, Mrs. Tayo Balogun. She looked up, confused. What is this? Dele's voice cracked. The house I bought with your money. I managed to get it cleared from the fraud investigation. I wanted to give it back to you before I die. You earned it, every brick of it. Tayo's throat tightened. You didn't have to. I did, he interrupted weakly. I took too much from you, Tayo. This is the only thing I can give back. She took a shaky breath. Dele, I forgave you already. You don't need to buy forgiveness. He smiled, eyes glistening. Then let this be my way of forgiving myself. A long silence fell between them. Finally, he spoke again, his tone softer. You know, I used to think love was control, power, money, respect. But it's none of that. It's peace. The peace I never gave you. Tayo's eyes filled with tears. We were both broken, Dele. You by pride, me by pain. Maybe this was how God meant to fix us, apart. He nodded slowly, eyes closing briefly. I'm glad you're happy now. I've seen the videos, your interviews. You turned your pain into power. You became everything I was too afraid to be. She reached out through the bars, her fingers brushing his trembling hand. I still pray for you, she whispered. Dele smiled weakly. Then maybe I'll be okay, after all. A guard approached quietly. Time's up, Ma. Tayo hesitated, tears threatening again. Goodbye, Dele. He looked at her one last time. No, not goodbye. Thank you. As she turned to leave, she heard him whisper faintly behind her, tell the world I'm sorry. That night, she received a call from the chaplain. His voice was heavy with sorrow. Mrs. Balogun. I'm sorry. Dele passed away peacefully an hour after you left. Tayo sat still for a long moment, phone pressed against her ear, heart silent. Then she whispered, he waited, just to say goodbye. She hung up, tears rolling down her face, not of bitterness this time, but of release. The next morning, she stood by the ocean in Lekki, the wind lifting her scarf gently. She opened her palm, letting the letter Dele wrote drift into the waves. Rest, Dele, she whispered. You're forgiven. The sun broke through the clouds then, bathing her in light, as though heaven itself heard. With Dele's death, Tayo's past finally rests. But the story isn't over yet, her future now begins, one shaped by forgiveness, purpose, and grace. 2 years later. The morning sun rose gently over Lagos Lagoon, painting the city gold. The sound of waves from the island mixed with faint laughter from joggers on Lekki Koi Bridge. Life was moving, just as it always had, but for Tayo Balogun, life had finally found rhythm again. She stood by the balcony of her Lekki home, the same house Dele had given back before his death. It had been fully renovated now, not with luxury, but with warmth. Walls painted cream and teal, photos of her charity events framed neatly, and a shelf filled with books about faith, healing, and women empowerment. On the center table sat a framed photo of Tayo and her mother, taken at the opening of her new foundation. The Second Chance Women's Initiative. After Dele's death, Tayo had spent months battling grief, not for the man he became, but for the love they once shared before greed consumed it. But grief slowly gave way to grace. She poured her pain into purpose, launching the foundation that helped widows, single mothers, and abandoned women rebuild their lives through vocational training, counseling, and small business grants. At first, people doubted her. Some said, "Who wants advice from a woman whose marriage failed?" But Tayo answered them in the only way she knew, with results. Her foundation grew faster than anyone expected. Within a year, it had partnered with Lagos State Ministry of Women Affairs, training hundreds of women across Surulere, Ikeja, and Mushin. She began hosting workshops, giving motivational talks, and sharing her story online, not as a victim, but as a survivor. Sometimes, she would say, standing before a crowd of women with tears in her eyes, "The people who break you are just God's tools to build you into who you were meant to be." One afternoon, she was invited to Channels TV's Morning Rise for an interview. The studio lights were bright, the cameras rolling. The host, a cheerful woman in her 30s, leaned forward. "Mrs. Balogun, your story has touched so many hearts. After everything you went through, how did you find forgiveness?" Tayo smiled gently, her voice steady. "I realized forgiveness isn't for the other person. It's for your own peace. Holding on to pain is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. When I forgave Dele, I didn't excuse what he did, I just refused to let it define me." The host nodded, visibly moved. "And what would you say to women watching right now who feel broken or betrayed?" Tayo looked directly into the camera. "I'd say this: you are not your pain. You are not your past. And you are never too old to start over. I was 40 when I lost everything, but that's also when I found myself." There was silence for a moment. Then, applause filled the studio. That evening, as she returned home, her phone buzzed with messages, women thanking her, some crying, some promising to start over. One message caught her eye. It read, "Dear Mrs. Balogun, I'm a widow. Your story saved me from ending my life. Thank you for reminding me that I can still rise." Tayo held the phone to her chest and wept softly. Not from sadness, but gratitude. A few weeks later, she visited Dele's grave. The cemetery was quiet, birds singing gently above. She knelt, placing a small bouquet of lilies. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "I told the world your story, not as your shame, but as my lesson." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, she felt a soft peace wash over her. Months later, her foundation launched a scholarship named the Balogun Hope Fund to sponsor young women in tech, design, and entrepreneurship. It was her way of rewriting their name with meaning, not as a story of betrayal, but of rebirth. During the inauguration speech, Tayo said, "When a woman survives pain, she becomes light for others walking through darkness. My journey wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Because sometimes, God rebuilds your life from the ashes, just so others can see how beauty can rise from brokenness." The audience stood in ovation. As the day ended, she walked by the beach again, the same spot where she had once let Dele's letter drift away. Now, she stood with a calm smile, watching the waves. Her voice was soft but steady. "Some stories end in revenge. Mine ends in redemption." And as the sunset painted the Lagos sky orange and gold, Tayo Balogun final. Why new peace? Dear viewer, pain can shape you, but it doesn't have to define you. Forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve rest. Rise again, not for revenge, but for your own joy. And when you finally heal, help another woman. And do the same. Sparkling Heart, thank you for watching. You married her for money. What she did next shocked everyone. If Tayo's journey touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share this story to inspire others. Comment below, do you believe forgiveness can bring true peace?